Pregnant wife confronts billionaire husband at the airport after catching him with mistress. Love can be a tempest, unpredictable and fierce, but few are prepared for the chaos that erupts when betrayal is exposed in the harshest spotlight. Ava Harrington, radiant and resolute despite her blossoming pregnancy, thought she knew her billionaire husband Lucas better than anyone. Yet, secrets have a way of worming their way into even the most lavish lives. A single phone call, a glimpse of lipstick on a collar, and in an instant, a fortress of trust crumbles. Today, under the bright fluorescent lights of LaGuardia Airport, she's ready to confront the man she both adores and despises. Witness a truth so raw it scorches. Ava Harrington woke early on a crisp spring morning. Even in the hush of dawn, her senses were amplified by pregnancy. The faint scent of coffee in the hallway, the soft hum of the air conditioning system, the subtle twinge in her lower back that signaled change blossoming within her. She lay there for a few minutes, acutely aware of the new life stirring in her belly, thinking about the man who lay inches away, Lucas Harrington, her husband, her provider, her partner in high-stakes love and life. For years, Lucas had been on a relentless climb to the upper echelons of wealth and power. The Harrington name was once obscure, yet through a series of savvy investments, acquisitions, and cunning business maneuvers, he had ascended to the billionaire tier in record time. There were rumors, whispers of questionable partnerships and silent payoffs that made certain roads smoother than they ought to be. But to Ava, he had always been the dashing, enthralling man who seemed capable of accomplishing miracles. Their first meeting was at a private fundraising event in Soho, where he championed a charity providing scholarships for underprivileged students. He dazzled her with intelligence, wit, and an aura of confidence that made it impossible to look anywhere else. She remembered that night clearly, the way his eyes shone each time he looked at her, the gentle brush of his hand at the small of her back as he guided her through the crowd, the sweet sincerity in his voice when he said, "I just want to make the world a better place for kids who don't have a chance." Ava, who had grown up volunteering in soup kitchens with her parents in upstate New York, felt an instant kinship with his philanthropic spirit. They dated for a whirlwind year and married in a star-studded ceremony at a private estate in the Hamptons. Each moment of the wedding was meticulously crafted white orchids draped on marble pillars, a gospel choir singing a rendition of Ain't No Mountain High Enough, and an A-list of guests that included a few real estate moguls, tech disruptors, and even a couple of Hollywood starlets. Their photos graced the society pages, proclaiming them a power couple for the ages. But the reality of an extraordinary lifestyle is that it's often built on carefully concealed cracks. Beneath the glossy veneer, Ava noticed small fissures in Lucas's behavior, a late-night phone call that he insisted was a business emergency, the discreet text messages she glimpsed on his phone from someone named C, the times he'd arrive home from the Harrington Global headquarters, smelling of expensive perfume that she didn't own. Still, she convinced herself these were mere illusions of a hormonal mind. She was pregnant, her emotions were heightened, and she was determined not to sabotage her own happiness with paranoia. After all, Lucas worked with so many big-names investors, heiresses, CEOs, socialites. It could simply be business. By the time Ava was 3 months pregnant, something felt off. Lucas no longer looked at her the same way, and his once flirtatious conversation grew stale. The alarm bells in Ava's heart grew louder when she caught Lucas in a hurried phone call, voice trembling in excitement, whispering, "I can't wait to see you again." She had never heard him speak so tenderly to a business associate. That was the moment doubt crystallized into dread. Yet she brushed it aside, hoping, praying that she'd misunderstood. Lucas was a man with unstoppable ambition, propelled by an almost supernatural drive for success. He was also a partner at Rostov Harrington Industries, the conglomerate he co-owned with a Russian venture capitalist named Mikhail Rostov, someone rumored to have alliances in every major port city worldwide. Deals were sealed over casual golf games with politicians or quiet dinners in the backrooms of exclusive clubs. Ava had watched as Lucas navigated these complicated webs, weaving his own brand of cunning and charm into every handshake. He was unstoppable and revered, but such power came with temptations. Compounding her suspicions was the advice from her best friend, Hannah Jeffries, a former journalist turned investigative freelancer. Hannah had uncovered secrets in boardrooms before and recognized the signs. "Ava, I've seen this pattern 1,000,000 times. Rich men think they can hide everything. The more powerful they are, the better they get at deception." At first, Ava bristled, defending Lucas with every fiber of her being. But seeds of suspicion had already been planted, and they sprouted painful thorns in her heart. One quiet afternoon, as sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Harrington penthouse on Fifth Avenue, Ava decided to confront her suspicions head-on. She was on the couch, swaddled in a plush throw, reading an article about philanthropic galas in Manhattan. Her phone buzzed with a call from Hannah. Ava answered quickly, expecting a casual chat. "You're not going to like this," Hannah began, her voice trembling, "but I've been poking around. I found pictures." Ava's breath caught in her throat. Pictures of what? Of Lucas. With a woman I don't recognize. Exotic-looking, tall, dark hair, definitely not just a friendly meeting. They were laughing in front of Delphine's restaurant in Midtown, arms around each other, and they disappeared into the back of a car with tinted windows. There's another photo at the Rothschild Hotel. Same woman, same intimacy. The words struck Ava like a sledgehammer, threatening to break her composure. She fought the urge to vomit, attributed partly to her morning sickness and partly to the horrifying possibility that the father of her unborn child might be stepping out. Tears blurred her vision, but she steadied her voice. "Send me the pictures," she said, resolute. "I need to see for myself." When the images arrived, they were even worse than Hannah's description. Lucas's face beamed with a carefree joy she hadn't seen in months, and the mysterious woman, slender, elegant, in a figure-hugging dress, looked like she had stepped straight off a magazine cover. Ava noticed small details, how the woman's hand rested on Lucas's chest, how they seemed at ease with each other, as though they'd done this many times before. Ava stared at the photos for hours, her heart thrashing with anger and despair. She tried to reason with herself there could be an explanation. Perhaps this was a business associate, or an old friend, or a cousin from abroad, though she knew most of Lucas's extended family personally. But no, the pictures were undeniable. Their body language spoke volumes, proclaiming an intimacy that Ava recognized too well. When she could bear it no longer, she retreated to the master bedroom, locked the door, and sobbed until her eyes throbbed with pain. Before falling into a fitful sleep, she placed a protective hand on her belly, silently promising her child that she would uncover the truth and protect them both. It was that night that the first crack in her world became a visible chasm. And though she did not know it yet, her journey would lead her to a climax so public, so dramatic, that entire tabloids would run headlines for weeks. Ava Harrington was about to embark on the fight of her life, with stakes higher than she had ever imagined: her dignity, her marriage, and her unborn child's future. The morning sun cut through the bedroom curtains in swaths of gold and shadow, illuminating the boxes of clothing. Ava had begun gathering in a cautious attempt to prepare for motherhood. She was almost 4 months pregnant now, and her doctor had recommended daily walks for both physical and mental health. But as she slipped on her shoes, she realized that nothing in her life felt ordinary anymore. Lucas had left early, citing an urgent business meeting downtown. Instead of sulking in silence, Ava decided it was time to channel her inner resolve. She dialed Hannah's number and arranged to meet at a nearby cafe. At the cafe, Hannah pushed a thick envelope across the table. The corners were dog-eared, and Ava swore she could see the weight of heartbreak in every crease. "I've gathered everything I could," Hannah said. "Photographs, phone logs, possibly flight confirmations." "Flight confirmations?" Ava asked, voice shaky. "Yes. It looks like Lucas has been booking private jets under aliases. The logs match times he's been missing or claimed to be on business trips. I cross-reference them with a contact I have at the small airfield outside Teterboro. The planes are registered under a shell company, Lux Holdings. Ring a bell?" Ava shook her head slowly, taking a deep breath to ward off the rising panic. She spread the photographs across the table, hoping a more coherent story would emerge if she stared at them long enough. One picture showed Lucas and the same mysterious brunette stepping onto a private jet. Another depicted them walking hand in hand through a secluded resort in the Bahamas. Or so the timestamp suggested. Hannah tapped her finger on a flight confirmation. "Here's what's bizarre. Lucas booked a flight 2 days from now to Geneva, but there's a second passenger listed C. Beaumont. My guess is that's her name. C probably stands for Cecilia or Celeste or something along those lines." Ava didn't know whether to faint or scream. "He told me he had a meeting in Chicago next week," she whispered, tears brimming. He didn't say anything about Geneva. Hannah placed a comforting hand on Ava's arm. "People like Lucas have the money and power to conceal just about anything. I'm sorry you're going through this. You need to confront him." Ava nodded, lips parted but silent. In that moment, she felt a swirl of conflicting emotions: anger, heartbreak, humiliation. But also a strange sense of determination blossomed. She was pregnant with Lucas's child, and for that child's future, she needed to be certain of her next moves. After Hannah left, Ava ordered a simple latte and sat quietly, tears occasionally rolling down her cheeks, ignoring the curious glances of other patrons. She reflected on the past few months, how Lucas's personality seemed to shift in subtle ways. She recalled nights when Lucas came home late, reeking of a perfume that wasn't hers. She recalled how he dismissed it as a heavy cologne my colleague wore. She remembered the day he snapped at her for asking if he'd be free for a doctor's appointment, telling her he was busy with more important matters. All of it was puzzle pieces now clicking into place, forming a haunting image of betrayal. When she returned to the penthouse, Ava summoned the nerve to question him. But Lucas wasn't there. A short text read, "Staying at the office tonight. Don't wait up." She tried to call, but it went straight to voicemail. She left a message anyway, her voice trembling. "Lucas, call me. We need to talk. This is urgent." No reply came. Minutes turned into hours. She scrolled through social media, searching for any sign of Lucas or the mysterious mistress. Nothing. Men like Lucas were adept at scrubbing their footprints from the digital realm. By midnight, Ava lay in bed, clutching her phone, tears slipping silently onto the pillow. She felt alone, abandoned, and a wave of panic descended like a suffocating shroud. In the quiet darkness, she whispered to her unborn child, "We'll be okay, I promise. We'll figure this out." The next morning, fate intervened. Lucas's personal assistant, a timid man named Oliver Grant, contacted Ava. "Ma'am, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Mr. Harrington changed his flight schedule. He's leaving for Geneva from LaGuardia Airport at 3:00 p.m. tomorrow. I only found out because the itinerary was updated in the system. He hasn't mentioned it to you, has he?" Ava's heart pounded in her chest. This was it, the flight Hannah had warned her about. She swallowed the lump in her throat. "No, Oliver, he hasn't told me. Thank you for letting me know." Oliver hesitated. "Should I do anything? Reschedule?" Or Ava forced a calm tone. No, leave everything as is. Thank you for informing me. She hung up, a plan already forming in her mind. If Lucas was traveling with his mistress, if he had lied about where he was going, there was only one way to catch him red-handed, to confront him at the airport in front of everyone. She phoned Hannah. "It's happening tomorrow. He'll be at LaGuardia with her. I'm going to confront him," she said, determination fueling her voice. "You're sure you want to do this in public?" Hannah cautioned. "He's given me no choice," Ava said, tears streaming down her cheeks but voice steady. "I need answers. I need him to see me, pregnant with his child, and face the truth." Hannah offered to accompany her, but Ava declined. "I need to do this on my own," Ava insisted, quietly resolute. She spent the rest of the day preparing mentally. She rehearsed what she would say, how she would control her anger. She also readied herself for the possibility that Lucas might deny everything, might dismiss her as irrational. But Ava was no longer a naive wife who could be appeased by half-truths. She was a mother-to-be, fortified by a primal need to protect her child and her dignity. That night, she barely slept. Each time she closed her eyes, she envisioned the scenario at the airport. Perhaps Lucas would see her and regret everything, falling at her feet, apologizing. Or maybe he would be cold, turning all blame on her. She vacillated between heartbreak and fury, her emotions swirling in an unrelenting storm. Dawn arrived, pale light spreading through the penthouse windows. Ava dressed in a simple but elegant black maternity dress, her baby bump subtly visible. She didn't want to wear anything flashy. She wanted her presence to speak for itself, to remind Lucas of the life growing inside her that he was so callously disregarding. As she waited for the clock to tick closer to the appointed hour, she thought about every sacrifice she had made. She had left her own promising career in art curation to support Lucas's ambitious rise. She had believed in his philanthropic fronts, had championed his vision. But now, each memory served as a shard of betrayal, embedding itself deeper into her heart. Shortly after noon, Ava headed downstairs. The doorman Ahmed offered his usual warm greeting, "Good afternoon, Mrs. Harrington," but caught the storm in her eyes. She simply nodded, walking briskly outside to hail a taxi. A black SUV pulled up instead Oliver's. Through an open window, he said, "I'm going that way, ma'am. Let me take you." Ava hesitated, then accepted. As she climbed into the SUV, Oliver's eyes flicked to her belly, and his expression softened. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Harrington. I never intended for any of this to happen. Lucas, well, he's not been himself." Ava just nodded, too emotional to respond. She stared out the window, watching the city she once loved speed by, oblivious to the drama unfolding within her. She wondered if the bystanders on the sidewalks had any idea how quickly life could be upended. At last, they arrived at LaGuardia Airport. Busy travelers bustled past with suitcases, families, and anticipation of flights leading to countless different destinations. Ava stepped onto the curb, her heart hammering, a swirl of adrenaline coursing through her veins. She thanked Oliver quietly and walked into the terminal, scanning for any sign of Lucas. And there, standing by a private check-in counter, was her husband dressed immaculately in a tailored charcoal suit. By his side, in stiletto heels and a chic white ensemble, was the mysterious brunette, her arms draped around Lucas's as they spoke to a flight attendant. Ava's world slowed to a standstill, and she felt as though she was walking through thick water. Each step forward felt monumental, each breath labored. Gripping her purse strap tightly, Ava advanced, unaware that onlookers were turning to see the stunning pregnant woman stalking through the terminal with unwavering determination. Today was the day secrets would shatter. There would be no turning back. The bustle of LaGuardia's Terminal B was frenetic rolling suitcases, loudspeakers announcing boarding times, children crying for ice cream. Yet, in that swirling chaos, Ava's universe narrowed to a single point, Lucas Harrington standing with his mistress. He looked up. At first, he merely glanced at Ava, as if she were a stranger passing by. Then recognition took hold, and his eyes widened in shock. Color drained from his face, and for a moment, his perfect composure cracked. His mistress, presumably C. Beaumont, followed his gaze and caught sight of Ava's baby bump. A swirl of confusion, then defiance, danced across the mistress's eyes, as if daring Ava to do her worst. Ava drew in a breath, her heart pounding. She would not be silent. She would not quietly endure the humiliation. In the hush that seemed to settle around them, though, in reality, the airport was still a cacophony. Ava approached with all the dignity she could muster. "So," she said, her voice trembling only slightly, "this is how I find out. In an airport where you're about to fly off with her." Lucas opened his mouth, but no words emerged. He glanced nervously at the bystanders, who had begun to take notice. A few travelers slowed, drawn by the tension crackling in the air. The flight attendant assisting them tried to maintain professional detachment, but her eyes flickered with alarm. What are you doing here?" Lucas finally managed, his voice hollow. Ava raised an eyebrow, letting an icy laugh slip. "Oh, so that's your first question. Not are you okay? Is our baby okay?" She placed a hand on her bump, ensuring everyone around them understood exactly what was at stake. C. Beaumont, her full name, would indeed turn out to be Cecilia Beaumont, shifted her weight, crossing her arms. "You're causing a scene, Miss S. Harrington," she said in a hushed yet pointed tone. Ava turned to Cecilia, anger flaring in her eyes. "You dare speak to me? You, who's been sneaking around with my husband behind my back?" She wanted to let loose, to curse, to scream, but she also knew that part of the reason she came here was to claim her dignity in public. A meltdown would only give Lucas or Cecilia ammunition to paint her as unhinged. Lucas took a step forward, ignoring Cecilia's attempts to cling to his arm. "Ava, I can explain," he said softly, though his voice still held the assuredness of a man used to being in control. "Let's go somewhere private." "No," Ava declared, voice ringing out. "We talk here." Heads were definitely turning now, curious whispers spreading through the crowd. Smartphones emerged from pockets, capturing videos. Ava had known this might happen. Part of her dreaded going viral in such a moment. The other part was oddly grateful for an audience she wanted. No more lies, no more gaslighting. Let the world see the truth. Lucas's composure faltered. He ran a hand through his hair, glancing at Cecilia, who stood shifting uncomfortably on her designer heels. "Ava, please," he repeated. "You're upset and pregnant. This isn't good for you or the baby." Ava's anger surged like wildfire. "Don't you dare pretend you care about my well-being now. All these months, you've been lying to me, sneaking around with her." She gestured towards Cecilia, whose face was set in a stone-cold mask. "You obviously found out," Cecilia interjected, her tone smug. "But I'd suggest not making a bigger spectacle. It won't change anything. Lucas loves me. We're going to Geneva together, and that's that." Lucas shot a sharp look at Cecilia, as if to say, "You're not helping." Ava realized with a jolt that there must be genuine emotion between them, or at least an arrangement that Cecilia believed in. The realization was a punch to the gut, but she clenched her fists, refusing to show weakness. "Ava," Lucas began, voice lowered, "I never wanted this to happen. I love you, but our marriage, it's complicated. I didn't know how to tell you." Ava let out a humorless laugh. "So, you decided not to tell me at all. You chose to juggle a mistress and your pregnant wife as if we were business transactions." He grimaced, opening his mouth to speak again, but by now a hush had settled in the immediate vicinity. People were definitely recording. Some airport staff hovered, debating whether to intervene. Sensing the heightened tension, Ava lifted her chin, determined not to crumble under the scrutiny. She leveled her gaze at Lucas, ignoring Cecilia entirely. "Answer me one question, Lucas. Have you ever loved me at all, or was I simply a trophy wife for your public image?" His eyes flickered, and for a moment, genuine regret welled up in them. "I did love you," he whispered. "I still do, in my own way. But this, what you see here, is something I couldn't walk away from." Ava closed her eyes, letting tears fall. She heard a few gasps from the onlookers. If heartbreak had a sound, it was the collective hush of strangers realizing that a marriage was crumbling before their eyes. She took a trembling breath and asked the question burning in her soul, "Why? Why do this, especially now, when I'm carrying our child?" Lucas hesitated, then admitted in a soft voice, "It started as a mistake. After the Japan deal fell through last year, I was frustrated, anxious. I met Cecilia at a private function in London. She understood my pressures. We bonded over business, and then it became more. I didn't plan it this way." "You never planned for me to find out either," Ava replied, voice quivering with a mix of anger and devastation. A new wave of shame crossed his features. "I don't know what to say," he muttered. "I'm sorry, I didn't want to hurt you, but you did, Lucas." She shot back, tears streaming down her cheeks now. "And you hurt our future child. You've taken the sanctity of our family and shattered it." The entire spectacle might have ended there, had Cecilia not decided to interject once again. "We need to go," she demanded, looking at her diamond-studded watch. "We'll miss the flight." Ava turned on her with raw fury. "How dare you? You stand there, wearing your couture dress and your diamond watch, talking about your flight while I stand here, humiliated, pregnant with the man's baby you've stolen. Have you no shame?" Cecilia shrugged, a cold smile stretching her lips. "He came to me willingly. Nobody forced him. Maybe you just weren't enough for him." A collective gasp rippled through the gathering crowd. Someone muttered, "Oh, hell no." Another bystander seemed ready to intervene in Ava's defense. Anger surged in Ava's chest, but she kept her voice under control, almost chillingly calm. "I suggest you watch your words. If you think this flight will carry you away from the consequences of your actions, you're sorely mistaken." At that moment, an airline official stepped forward, clearing her throat. "Excuse me, but this is a private flight lounge area. We need to maintain some decorum. Is there a way we can help resolve this in a more secluded space?" Ava looked around, noticing the cameras. Her tears of betrayal had already been captured for the world to see. In a flash, she imagined the headlines: "Pregnant wife confronts billionaire husband in airport scandal." Yet, despite the humiliation, she felt a sense of liberation. The truth was no longer hidden. Lucas's duplicity was exposed. She had forced him to confront it publicly, and now the power to decide her future lay with her. She turned back to Lucas, ignoring the official. "I'm leaving, Lucas. I'm going to my parents' house upstate. Don't you dare follow me. Don't you dare call me until you figure out who you truly are. I won't be a pawn in your twisted love triangle. If you want to run off to Geneva with your mistress, go, but you will not escape the consequences. There will be a divorce, and I will ensure that our child is protected from any more of your lies." Lucas stepped forward, anguish carved across his face. "Ava, please." But Ava had made her choice. She turned on her heel, tears still spilling, and began walking away. A few onlookers parted to let her pass, offering sympathetic glances or softly murmured, "I'm so sorry." She held her head high, determined not to crumble until she was out of sight. Behind her, she could hear frantic whispers as the flight attendant tried to usher Lucas and Cecilia to their private gate. Cecilia mumbled something about paparazzi, and Lucas's voice rose in desperation, but the words were lost to the airport's bustling din. Ava stepped onto the escalator, heading to the exit. She had come here for a final confrontation, to tear away the veil of deception, and that mission was accomplished. The next steps in her journey would be far from easy, but at least she was stepping out of the shadows, determined to reclaim her life. Ava emerged into the fresh air outside LaGuardia, tears still burning behind her eyes. She flagged down a taxi, slid into the back seat, and gave her parents' address in upstate New York. As the cab pulled away from the curb, the magnitude of what had just happened hit her. Her marriage's dirty laundry had been aired in one of the most public places imaginable, with an audience of strangers, some likely capturing every moment on their phones. She rested her hand on her abdomen, feeling the gentle flutter that might or might not be the baby moving. "We'll be okay," she whispered, more to reassure herself. She stared out the window, letting the hum of traffic and the swirl of passing buildings lull her. She had no idea how drastically her life would transform, but one thing was certain: she would no longer be the complacent, trusting wife who waited at home. She would stand up for herself and for her child, no matter the cost. Upon arrival at her childhood home, a cozy, two-story Victorian with a wraparound porch, her mother, Linda Carlton, rushed out to greet her. "Ava!" Linda exclaimed, arms wide open. The moment Ava stepped out of the taxi, she collapsed into her mother's embrace. Tears poured out in torrents, her body shuddering as she finally let go of the facade of strength she had held at the airport. Linda ushered Ava inside, gently guiding her to the living room sofa. Moments later, AVA's father, Greg Carlton, appeared, looking weary yet determined. He had caught Ava's frantic call from the taxi and hurried home from the local community center where he volunteered. "You're safe now," Greg murmured, placing a comforting hand on Ava's shoulder. Sniffling, Ava recounted the entire confrontation, from the first suspicions to the dramatic showdown at LaGuardia. Linda's face fell with each revelation, heartbreak mingled with outrage. Greg's fists clenched, and he paced, exuding a quiet fury. "I'm going to have a talk with that boy," he growled, voice trembling with indignation. Ava shook her head. "No, Dad, please. Right now, I just need space. I need to figure out what to do about the divorce, about custody, about everything." She rubbed her temples, exhaustion pressing down on her like a lead weight. Linda and Greg nodded in understanding, promising to support her every step of the way. As the evening wore on, Hannah showed up, having driven straight from the city. She brought a suitcase full of Ava's clothes and personal items, which she had gathered from the penthouse. "I thought you'd need these," she said softly, placing the suitcase by the sofa. Ava offered a weak smile. "You're a lifesaver, Hannah. I can't believe I even lived that life. It feels so foreign now." Hannah knelt beside her, clasping her hands. "I'm proud of you, Ava. You stood up for yourself in the face of betrayal. Some women take years to get there. You did it publicly and with dignity." Ava wasn't sure if being humiliated in an airport lounge was dignified, but she appreciated the sentiment. "Thank you for always having my back," she murmured. Her eyes flicked to the clock. Lucas and Cecilia were probably on their flight by now, leaving the chaos behind, or so they thought, but Ava knew the fallout was only beginning. Indeed, over the next few days, the story exploded on social media. Clips of the confrontation, filmed by onlookers, went viral. A trending hashtag emerged, #airport_confrontation, spawning countless memes and reaction videos. Even mainstream gossip sites picked up the story, featuring headlines like "Pregnant Wife Confronts," "Billionaire Husband's Infidelity at LaGuardia," or "Lucas Harrington's Airport." Affair the ultimate takedown. Some sites sympathetically portrayed Ava as a wronged wife, while others, fueled by Lucas's PR machine, suggested she had orchestrated a public stunt. Amid the media circus, Ava's phone rang incessantly, reporters seeking interviews, talk show invitations, relatives wanting the inside scoop. She declined them all, too emotionally raw and too focused on her pregnancy to face public scrutiny. Lucas tried calling multiple times from Switzerland, leaving voicemails that ranged from desperate apologies to vague threats if she pursued a messy divorce. Ava turned off her phone, letting Hannah field important calls. She wanted no contact, no more manipulations. For respite, Ava spent long afternoons in her parents' backyard, reading, thinking, and trying to find slivers of serenity. The hum of bees among the hydrangeas soothed her ragged nerves. Linda would bring her cups of tea or slices of fruit, reminding her gently to keep up her strength for the baby. Despite the heartbreak, Ava felt a calm determination settling over her. She would survive this. At one point, Ava's father handed her a thick package. From a courier, he said. It's from the law firm representing Lucas, I believe. Ava's heart sank. With trembling fingers, she opened it to discover a meticulously worded letter from Harrington, Global's legal counsel, essentially warning her not to do anything that could harm Lucas's business or reputation. Tucked in was also a draft of a proposed separation agreement, offering her what the lawyers deemed a generous settlement, along with hush clauses regarding Lucas's personal life. Hannah, who had glanced over the documents, snorted in disgust. They want you to sign away your rights to speak about what he did in exchange for a hefty sum. Typical. He's trying to control the narrative. Ava felt a surge of anger. He's not going to buy my silence. Especially not when he's the one who broke our vows. That evening, she made a decision she would secure her own legal representation, someone powerful, someone who wouldn't be intimidated by Lucas's billions. Through a friend of Hannah's, she was referred to Eleanor Rothschild, a formidable attorney known for handling high-stakes divorce cases involving the world's elite. Eleanor Rothschild was rumored to have bested multinational CEOs and scions of dynastic families in court. If anyone could help Ava navigate this legal minefield, it was her. When Ava called Eleanor, the lawyer's calm, confident voice instantly put her at ease. "I've heard of your situation, Mrs. Harrington," Eleanor said without a trace of judgment. "I'd be honored to represent you. First off, do not sign anything. Let me look at every piece of paper they send you. We'll fight for what's fair, and we'll ensure your child's future is secure." Relief washed over Ava. Finally, an ally who could battle Lucas and his empire on her behalf. She spent the following week compiling every document, every scrap of evidence of Lucas's infidelity and potential financial misdeeds. She forwarded them to Eleanor's office in Manhattan, trusting the experienced attorney to build a strong case. Meanwhile, rumors began swirling in the business sector that Lucas's reputation had taken a significant hit. Investors balked at the scandal, wary that the negative press might spill over into Harrington Global's public image. The board members at Rostov Harrington Industries called an emergency meeting to discuss damage control. Mikhail Rostov himself was said to be livid at Lucas's personal indiscretions, overshadowing their major acquisitions. Ava caught wind of these developments through Hannah, who still had her network of corporate contacts. "He's feeling the heat," Hannah reported, "not just from you, but from the entire business community. If you play your cards right, you'll have more leverage in the settlement." Yet Ava wasn't purely motivated by money. While she certainly wanted to ensure her and her baby's financial future, she was more determined to reclaim her sense of identity and dignity. The baby deserved a father who wasn't a proven liar. She deserved a husband who truly honored his vows. If that reality was impossible with Lucas, she'd forge a new path. One late afternoon, as she sat on the back porch watching an amber sunset, Ava stroked her belly and whispered, "We'll get through this, baby. I promise I'll give you a life filled with love and honesty, even if that means it's just you and me." Despite her heartbreak, she felt the first stirrings of hope growing in the space where despair once resided. A week after the airport incident, as Ava settled into her parents' home, a thick packet arrived from Hannah. Inside were documents gleaned from a contact who worked in financial forensics. The evidence was startling. It pointed to large sums of money funneled through shell companies under Lucas's name. While some of these payments appeared to be hush money for prior scandals, others seemed linked to questionable business dealings that skirted legality. A portion even hinted at involvement with unscrupulous foreign entities, the details too complex to unravel without a deeper investigation. Ava's hands trembled as she read the documents. She had known Lucas was ambitious, but she had never suspected criminal or near-criminal activity. Could he truly be involved in something so underhanded, or was it Mikhail Rostov's influence? She felt a swirl of betrayal all over again. Had her entire marriage been a facade, a backdrop for Lucas's ever-expanding empire of deceit? She immediately forwarded the documents to Eleanor Rothschild, who responded the next day with a curt email. "This is highly significant. Do not discuss with anyone else. We'll use this strategically if Lucas attempts to push an unfavorable settlement. Also, keep personal copies." Ava stored the papers in her father's old safe, hidden behind a painting in the study. Her father, noticing her agitation, tried to reassure her. If he's done something illegal, justice will catch up with him eventually. But be careful, sweetheart. Men like Lucas can become dangerous when cornered. A sinking feeling settled in Ava's stomach. She placed a hand protectively over her belly, remembering how Lucas had once threatened her during a voicemail, cautioning against a messy divorce. She prayed it was an idle threat. Shortly after, an unexpected visitor arrived at the front door, Vanessa Morgan, an old friend of Ava's who worked at the Harrington Global offices in New York. Vanessa greeted her warmly, though her face was etched with concern. Ava led her to the living room, offering tea. Once settled, Vanessa leaned forward. "I had to come in person," she whispered. "Lucas's office is in complete disarray. Also," she paused, hesitating, "I know about the mistress. I've known for a while." Ava's eyes widened, and fresh waves of hurt surged. "You knew? Why didn't you tell me?" Vanessa's voice shook with remorse. "I wanted to, but I was afraid of losing my job. You know how ruthless Lucas can be. Plus, you were so happy when you first got pregnant, and I kept hoping he'd end things with that woman before you ever found out." Ava nodded, understanding the complex loyalties that employees sometimes faced with powerful bosses. "Well, now the truth is out, and it's a nightmare." Vanessa nodded. "That's not all. I overheard Lucas in a closed-door meeting. He was furious about some documents going missing, financial records, he said. I can't be sure, but I suspect it's what you have. Be very careful." Ava's heart thundered. "He doesn't know I've seen them, right?" Vanessa shrugged. "I don't think so. But he's paranoid, blaming everyone from Mikhail Rostov to external hackers. He's determined to find out who leaked them. I had to warn you, Lucas can be vindictive." Ava swallowed hard. "Thank you, Vanessa. You don't know how much this means. I'll make sure to stay safe." After Vanessa left, Ava sank onto the couch, stress pulling her nerves taut. She dialed Eleanor Rothschild immediately, informing her of Vanessa's warnings. Eleanor's voice was firm. "We need to move faster on your separation. Let's finalize a strategy and present Lucas with terms he can't refuse before he grows more desperate. If these documents implicate him in serious wrongdoing, he'll fight tooth and nail to keep them under wraps." Ava nodded, her decision clear. She agreed to meet Eleanor in Manhattan the following week to prepare her official demands. She called Hannah, who insisted on accompanying her. "You shouldn't be traveling alone, especially in your condition," Hannah said. So, a week later, Ava found herself in Manhattan, stepping into the sleek, high-rise building that housed Rothschild and Associates. Although pregnant and emotionally battered, she felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had loved Lucas deeply, had tried to be the best wife possible, but he had shattered her trust and threatened her well-being. Now, for the sake of her unborn child, she was determined to fight back. Eleanor greeted her with a sympathetic but professional air, her sharp grey eyes reflecting both compassion and strategy. "We have a strong case," she began, shuffling through several folders. "Infidelity is one matter, but potential financial crimes, that's a bigger leverage. Lucas will do almost anything to avoid public litigation on this." Ava's stomach churned. She didn't want to see him rot in prison. She merely wanted to protect herself and her baby. But if Lucas had crossed legal lines, it was no longer just a personal matter. "What do we do next?" she asked. "We file for divorce on grounds of adultery, with the financial misdeeds as a separate but potent factor," Eleanor explained. "We'll demand a substantial settlement, enough for you and the child to live comfortably, plus child support. We'll also keep the option open to hand over the incriminating documents to the authorities, should Lucas try to strong-arm you." Ava nodded, her jaw set in determination. She signed the necessary papers, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. She would never have imagined, on her wedding day, that she'd be here finalizing divorce proceedings at a corporate lawyer's office. Yet, life had twisted in unimaginable ways, and she had no choice but to adapt. Before leaving, Eleanor squeezed her hand. "You're doing the right thing, Ava. Hold your head high." Ava forced a small smile. "I'm trying," she murmured, "but it hurts." That evening, back at her parents' house, Ava curled up in her old bedroom. The walls were still decorated with remnants of her teenage years' posters of art exhibitions, fairy lights that no longer worked, a collage of photos with friends from high school. It felt surreal to be here again, as if time had looped back, carrying her from one uncertain chapter of life to another. She placed a hand on her belly, the baby stirring within, and let herself cry. She wept for the love she had lost, for the illusions that had been shattered, for the uncertain future that lay ahead. But beneath the tears, there was a blossoming sense of resolution. She would not let heartbreak define her. She would carve a new path, one of honesty, self-respect, and unyielding devotion to her child. Whether or not Lucas changed, Ava would honor her vow to protect her family's future. 2 days after Ava signed the divorce papers, she received a call from Lucas. For a moment, she considered ignoring it, but a resolve took hold. She pressed accept. "I got your papers," Lucas said, his voice hoarse. "Eleanor Rothschild, really? You're going for the jugular." Ava steadied herself, swallowing the lump in her throat. "You went for the jugular first, Lucas, when you cheated on me, your pregnant wife." A brief silence. Then a weary sigh. I never wanted this to happen. Let's find a way to settle quietly. We don't need to drag each other through the mud. Think of our child." Rage flared at the hypocrisy. "Now you want to think of our child? Where was that concern when you were flying off to Geneva with your mistress?" He exhaled sharply. "You don't understand. Cecilia isn't just some fling she's connected to Rostov's circle. It was political, partly. I can't just break it off, or Rostov might pull out of major deals. Everything is tangled." Ava's heart sank further, if that was even possible. So it hadn't even been about love. It was about power and deals. She felt a wave of disgust. "You've reduced marriage to a pawn in a larger game. I won't be part of that." Lucas paused. "I'm prepared to offer a settlement, a very generous one, enough to ensure you never have to worry about money again. Just keep the finances out of the media." Ava closed her eyes. She knew from Eleanor that Lucas's primary concern was his empire's reputation. "I'll let my lawyer handle discussions," she said coolly. "If you want to talk about the baby or attend doctor's appointments, then you speak to me as a father. But if you try to manipulate me again, Lucas, I'll make sure the public learns exactly what you've been doing behind closed doors." He was silent for a few beats. "Fine," he finally muttered. "I'll be in touch." The line went dead. Ava lowered the phone, tears slipping down her cheeks. Each conversation felt like an emotional battle. She was mourning the man she thought he was, while simultaneously defending herself against the man he had become. As the weeks passed, the divorce negotiations proceeded in fits and starts. Lucas and his legal team attempted to craft a settlement that would keep the financial documents under wraps. Eleanor countered, demanding more favorable terms for Ava. They haggled over assets, child support, potential alimony, everything from the penthouse to the vacation properties in the Maldives and Aspen. Each new email or phone call chipped away at Ava's emotional fortitude, yet also steeled her resolve. She refused to back down. Meanwhile, tabloids continued to spin their stories. Some sympathized with Ava, lauding her bravery. Others painted her as a gold digger, stirring up drama for a bigger payout. No matter the narrative, Ava tried to block it all out, focusing on the health of her pregnancy. She was now in her second trimester. She felt the baby kick regularly, a constant reminder of the new life anchoring her to hope. Hannah remained a loyal confidant, often visiting to lend support. They'd spend hours chatting about the future, about how Ava might eventually find love again, about baby names and nursery themes. Ava also reconnected with childhood friends in her hometown. They'd bring her homemade meals, gather for low-key evenings, and remind her that love and compassion could still be found in the world. In the midst of these personal upheavals, a rumor surfaced. Mikhail Rostov, incensed by the negative press, was pulling certain business ventures away from Harrington Global. The stock price took a hit, and Lucas was said to be in crisis mode, flying from Geneva to London to New York, trying to salvage deals. Ava couldn't help but feel a grim satisfaction. Perhaps it was petty, but she felt vindicated that Lucas's duplicity had real consequences. One afternoon, she received an urgent call from Eleanor. "I've just come from a meeting with Lucas's counsel. They're willing to meet nearly all of our demands, if you agree to a strict confidentiality clause about the financial documents and the affair." Ava's heart skipped a beat. "All of our demands," she repeated in disbelief. "Yes, a very large settlement, full custody to you with visitation rights, and enough monthly child support to ensure the child wants for nothing." She heard a note of caution in Eleanor's tone. But they want absolute secrecy. You can't speak or write publicly about any of this. If you breach that, the settlement is void. Additionally, Lucas wants to be present at the child's birth, if you'll allow it. A swirl of emotions overtook Ava. The money was tempting, not for greed's sake, but for the security of her and her baby's future. Yet the idea of letting Lucas waltz in and out of her life on his own terms grated her soul. She wanted to choose principle over hush money, but she also had to be pragmatic. The child's well-being was paramount, and continuous litigation could drain her emotionally and financially for years. "I need time to think," she told Eleanor. That night, she paced her old room, battling conflicting emotions. On one hand, refusing the offer could drag her into a protracted court battle, draining resources and risking stress complications for the pregnancy. On the other hand, accepting the settlement felt like letting Lucas buy his way out of accountability. Finally, she placed a hand on her belly, remembering that her first duty was to protect her child. She called Eleanor back. "Accept the deal," she said with a trembling voice. "But I have one condition. If he violates any moral or legal obligations in the future, if he brings that mistress around our child or commits another betrayal, I reserve the right to speak out or reopen the case." Eleanor paused. "I'll do my best to incorporate that. Though his team will fight it, it's a fair stance." Ava ended the call, feeling a mix of relief and sadness. With one decision, she was effectively closing the book on her marriage. No more illusions of reconciliation, no more naive hopes that the man she married would return. She was forging a new identity as a mother who had stood her ground. In the weeks that followed, the settlement was hammered out, typed and notarized. Ava received a lump sum, enough to ensure she could buy a home and live comfortably without ever needing Lucas's money again if she chose. She also had monthly child support secured and a clause that guaranteed full custody, with carefully scheduled visitation for Lucas. Most importantly, there was a mechanism allowing Ava to break the confidentiality clause if Lucas endangered the child or perpetuated further deceptions against her. When the final papers were signed, Ava felt an immense weight lift from her shoulders. She was officially free, separated from a man who had once swept her off her feet, but ultimately betrayed her in the cruelest way. It hurt deeply, but the sting was lessened by the knowledge that she was doing the right thing, forging a stable future for herself and her unborn baby. She focused on her pregnancy. At her 7-month checkup, the doctor confirmed that the baby was thriving. Ava felt the kick stronger than ever, each one a symbol of life and renewal. She busied herself setting up a small nursery in a spare room in her parents' house. It wasn't the opulent penthouse she had once envisioned, but it was cozy, filled with warmth and love, two qualities that money couldn't buy. Meanwhile, the media frenzy died down as new scandals supplanted her story. Celebrities broke up, politicians got caught in controversies, and the world moved on. Ava was glad to fade from the spotlight. The settlement agreement barred her from discussing the details, and she had no desire to relive that painful chapter publicly. Lucas tried to reach out a few times, asking if he could attend prenatal appointments. Ava allowed him once. After much deliberation, she recognized that their child would eventually have questions about their father. Yet, the tension in the obstetrician's office was palpable. Lucas attempted small talk, spoke politely to the doctor, but Ava could hardly meet his gaze. Her heart felt heavy, remembering all the times they had dreamed of starting a family in happier days. Now, the joy was tainted by betrayal. Nevertheless, she allowed him to see the ultrasound, to hear the baby's heartbeat. She reasoned it was the decent thing to do for the sake of the baby, if not for Lucas. After the appointment, Lucas walked her to her car, hands in his pockets. "Ava," he said quietly, "I'm sorry. Truly. I know you don't believe me, but I wish things were different." Ava swallowed hard, tears threatening to spill. "Me too," she whispered. Without another word, she climbed into the car and drove off, leaving Lucas standing alone in the parking lot. Late autumn leaves drifted across the driveway of Ava's parents' home. A crisp chill hung in the air, signaling the transition into winter. Inside, warmth emanated from the living room fireplace. Ava, now 8 months pregnant, reclined on the sofa, a blanket over her lap, sketching potential designs for a small art project she hoped to launch once the baby was old enough for her to work again. Her mother's gentle voice called from the kitchen, "Ava, sweetie, hot cocoa is ready." She smiled, feeling a rare moment of tranquility wash over her. Life had been tumultuous, but here in her parents' home, she found solace. A phone ping interrupted her peaceful reverie. She glanced at the screen, an email from a gallery owner she had once interned with. He was excited to feature her curated pieces in a small exhibition next spring, if she was interested. Her heart fluttered with excitement, a new opportunity, a new beginning, untainted by Lucas's shadow. She ran her hand across her belly. "Do you feel that? "Little one," she murmured, "we're going to be okay. Better than okay." That night, as she gazed out her bedroom window at the moonlit yard, Ava felt gratitude permeate her being. She had lost a marriage but gained a profound self-awareness. She had walked through the fire of betrayal and emerged, if not unscathed, at least unbroken. Love still existed. She felt it in the unwavering support of her parents, the loyalty of Hannah, and even the caring gesture of neighbors who checked in on her well-being. In a few weeks, she would welcome her child into the world. Whatever challenges lay ahead, she believed that honesty, courage, and compassion would guide her. The past few months had taught her that illusions, no matter how grand, are destined to shatter, if not built on truth. She wasn't naive anymore, but she still held on to hope. Hope that one day she might find real love again. Hope that her baby would grow up surrounded by kindness and integrity. Hope that this chapter of her life, painful as it was, had shaped her into a stronger, wiser woman. And so, as she finally lay down to sleep, Ava allowed herself a small smile. The memory of that airport confrontation had been seared into her mind, a turning point in her life story. But it was, at last, becoming just that, a memory. Ahead of her stretched a future in which she was free to write her own narrative, unburdened by lies and fortified by the simple, unwavering truth that she and her child deserved better. Life is an intricate tapestry of heartbreak and healing, and Ava Harrington's confrontation at LaGuardia proved that even the grandest illusions can crumble in an instant. Yet from the ashes of betrayal emerged a strength she never knew she possessed. Determined to protect her unborn child, she waged a legal and emotional battle against a man whose wealth and power once seemed invincible. Through every tearful goodbye and cautious step forward, Ava discovered that real power lies in self-respect and resilience. She built a future fueled by her own potential, not defined by anyone else's failings. If her journey has shown anything, it's that new beginnings often blossom from life's harshest storms. Now, if you found this story compelling, show your support. Like this video, share it with friends who love gripping real-life drama, and subscribe to the channel for more riveting tales that illuminate the resilience of the human spirit.